Hey Jack, welcome to the show.
Hey, nice to be here. I'm excited. It should be good.
Awesome, man. I before we get into BitCloud Hunt, I kind of want to know about like how did you like what have you done in the past? Like how did you get to here?
Oh, interesting. How did I get to here? I actually don't know how I found out about BitClout in general. I've been into the crypto space for a long, long time, but it's not kind of been something I've done a career-wise. I think I first got in with Ethereum. That was kind of like my first take. I remember Bitcoin kind of like popping up in college, but we weren't really like into it. We didn't kind of follow it too well. I got in first with Ethereum because I saw at the time there was this kind of like gambling service for Bitcoin. It was called Prime Dice, and I read an article about it. It's a really great article. I recommend like you should definitely read it. And it's called "The Day the House Lost." And it's fascinating. It's basically about how an anonymous account took this Prime Dice gambling service that was doing maybe like $3 million a day at the time in volume.
Whoa. Okay.
Yeah, which was insane, right? Like this tiny corner of the internet, and and I found it and I was fascinated. And some random account basically took them for like $2 million, and they figured out who the account was, and they said like, "Hey, we know you stole all this money." And the story goes that he basically stole more money and then replied to that. They thought they'd fixed the patch. He like moved around it again, stole more money, and then her messaged them basically saying like, okay, like now you realize that I'm not to kind of like be messed with, and you can either leave me and I'll take my $2 million and disappear, or you can try and stop me again, and I'll just keep taking you for more money. And they kind of writ off $2 million and just let this guy have $2 million. And it was fascinating. It's a really fascinating story. But I was fully sold on just seeing the volume going through. I was fully sold on the idea of kind of like building something. And I tried to build a Ethereum version of Prime Dice. At the time, Ethereum was really, really new. It was like maybe it definitely was like post their kind of like coin offering. It was maybe like $11, $8 to $11 at the time per coin.
Wow.
And yeah, and I started building an Ethereum version for that, and it was kind of I was doing it. I had like a year off, and I was kind of like focusing on building that, and that didn't really come to fruition. It didn't really come into anything, but it was kind of like a fun kind of project. That's definitely how I got into crypto.
How long ago was that?
That was probably when 2015 maybe.
Okay. Wow.
Um, yeah, 7 years ago, I think, was when that was. Yeah, and kind of my job. I mean, I'm a product designer by trade, and I don't. I still kind of like consult as a product designer, contract, and do that sort of stuff. Um, and yeah, I've kind of never been a crypto, like I've never been employed in crypto. But I live with one of the guys that we've just had join BitClout. He's actually like a flatmate of mine, and he's super. I mean, he's worked at crypto.com and like all these other places, and we kind of got into it around the same time. And he kind of like went the career path down that route, and I was just like, oh, I'll do it for fun, but like I don't necessarily want to follow it career wise in the
Yep.
short term, and I never did. But I've always been kind of like dabbling and building projects in the space.
That's amazing. And then so why did you want to build BitCloud Hunt? How did that happen?
So believe it or not, I basically decided to about 6 months ago. I built a project. It was probably a little bit less than that. I built a project called Great Creative, and essentially what it is it's a platform that just literally scrapes a bunch of ads from a bunch of different fast growing companies in the D2C space, so like Peloton and all these different places. And it'll basically pulls their ads and it just displays them for you. So you can go to the site and you can kind of like get the best ad inspiration, right? At the time, I was doing a lot in the kind of like
Okay.
D2C space, and I'm in the process right now of kind of like selling that little side project to like a private equity firm, and I was kind of like between contracting, working on that, and I decided I wanted to. Now I had some kind of like free time. What do I want to do? And the route that I was actually planning on taking is I've always been an engineer. Like I've always been able to code, but I've never being like an engineer. I've held like the odd job where I was kind of like a full stack developer here or there, but mainly they were hiring me to do design, and then like, oh, you can code a bit as well because like you can, so why not? Um, and they were like,
Hmm.
they basically, I took the time off and was like, I'm going to become a engineer, and I'm going to go and join like one of the bigger companies, and that's kind of like my plan. And so I took the time off, and I was just literally cramming algorithms and data structures and kind of like a lot of the interview prep stuff you need that I don't have because I don't have a computer science background. And I was kind of like self-learning computer science. And I built BitClout Hunt actually because I was fascinated in BitClout, and I wanted a break from studying other stuff. And it was Easter weekend, and I saw these projects popping up, and I was like, okay, this is really interesting. Let me like, I'd love it if there was a place where I could kind of like, see all the projects that are kind of popping up in the space, and the space is growing really quickly. So
Yeah,
in such a short time. So yeah, I built it
yeah,
over
that's
Easter
crazy.
weekend.
And how has it? I mean, obviously, like it has become the go-to place for checking out all the projects. I saw Ryan Hoover commenting on it. That was kind of
Yeah.
cool. How has it evolved? How has the journey been so far for you?
It's been crazy. It's been definitely kind of like so just insane. Like from launching the project, me and the guy who is now who I'm doing it with, he's called Matt, and I remember having a conversation with him where I was like, I think I'm going to build this project for a bit of fun, and he was like, oh, it sounds cool. Like let me get in, like put some like I'll kind of like buy some BitClout in it if you're going to launch it and stuff. And I was like, okay. Um, and I remember sitting down, I was like, okay, I think, we might get a few of the first projects, but because I'm not super focused on it, it wouldn't kind of like go anywhere. It was just kind of like a bit of fun. And it just now, I mean, now it occupies all my time ultimately. And yeah, like to go from 1 week dropping the site to, like you said, like I've actually spoke to Ryan Hoover, which
Wow.
was a crazy experience about the project, and he's been super supportive. And yeah, even Chris, who is the advisor, who's like advising us with BitCloud Hunt. I mean, such a great guy that like I would have never met otherwise, and just great to kind of like have his experience and his advising, and just a surreal experience to launch something that seems so trivial, but really kind of like just like kind of like ballooned into something way bigger than it could have ever kind of like I ever would have thought it would be in kind of like 2 weeks, which is the time frame, which is crazy.
It's so surreal. Anything you can share that is obviously that's something that you're okay sharing with, which is something that either Ryan or Chris said that has been pretty something you're like, whoa, this is awesome.
Oh, so I mean, the I remember us launching the Discord, and Ryan jumped in and kind of like left a comment in the Discord, and I think he was like one of the first people in there when we launched community, and we're just like, oh, like great work on this, guys, and that was just crazy, of course. Um, but I spoke to him about all the things we're doing, and I think he had so many great insights around essentially both the differences with like product hunt of kind of like the space that we're in right now. Um, but also he really helped us kind of like hone in this kind of like bigger picture of the product cycle. So that this kind of like flywheel system where people right now come to the site and they launch their projects, but we're really kind of like, thanks to Ryan, we're really kind of looking at the whole kind of like cycle end to end of user comes in, they're interested in an idea, they're like, hey, I want to build this, or maybe they've already got a team, and like taking them through that process all the way through to they essentially announce that project to the world or whatever, keep their kind of like followers engaged with it and bring people back to the platform, and the cycle essentially restarts. That
Yeah.
was been really good for us.
Yeah, I also think that there is also, correct me if I'm wrong, this is my assumption, but I also think there's an opportunity to also, like right now, like you're building a project and you're trying to probably hire for developers and other people in the
Yeah.
space. Like even like I was chatting with somebody, like, I guess I can't say his name, but I can tell. But I was chatting to the founder of BitCloud Pulse yesterday. He was chatting about how like, they're trying to hire, they're trying to like grow. And like every company that's building a tool and is doing well, they're trying to like grow and hire, right? And so even like me, like I'm trying to like hire a couple of people. So I also see like with what you're doing, there's also another angle there where, because you have all the companies there, you have all the information about there. Ensure in future you can also tie it to hiring as well, where like new people are coming in, they want to join a project. It could be a great way to segue that.
Absolutely. And this is kind of the thing, like as a product designer, like I think you often find, right, that you launch these projects or you launch anything and you never basically if you focus on building something for a problem set and delivering some value, I think the way that it essentially like spawns out of that as it kind of grows, and this is the same as startups generally, you can never ever anticipate all the different potential avenues, and this is definitely something that's true of BitClout Hunt. Um, what started really, which was just like the God's honest kind of like first version, was literally just like, okay, there's all these projects, like let's put a place up there for people to kind of like find those projects. And there's a lot of
Yeah,
stuff that's going on in the background right now that we're looking to do and moving towards doing that like you would have never guessed from step
yeah,
one how that could even come into this process. And like you said, like basically taking controlling that whole kind of product development cycle, right? Like you mentioned hiring, but like the whole thing, like projects start, they get a team, they want to maybe
yeah.
raise some money, they want to go through that whole
Sure.
process, they want to keep repeatedly talking to their investors. And I mean, the beauty of the platform is that for for a lot of people, the user is now the investor. Like never
Yeah.
before, if I kind of like love the show that you're putting on, could I before crypto, could I just be like, okay, I'll get in at the ground level? And that really changes a lot of stuff for us, and we're really excited about all the different avenues.
Yeah, kind of tying in the whole angel list side of it too, in a way. Yeah, that makes total
Yeah,
sense to me too.
yeah,
Fascinating. That's amazing, man. I'm happy for you. That's cool. I think it's gonna be very
appreciate it.
awesome to watch how this goes. Yeah. So one I guess question I have for you is like, you know, while you are while you're like, I guess like obviously now people are probably reaching out to you to get their projects on because they want eyeballs. But in general, as you are doing your research, as you're going and finding out different projects, what are a couple of projects that's really standing out to you?
Oh, right now.
Yeah.
Um, okay. I mean, there's a few that I'm very excited about that I don't think I can actually mention
Okay.
at this point. They're kind of like early on, but I think a couple that are really public that are awesome are Max at Subcloud is doing some really cool stuff. I think it ties in really well into Substack's already just raised a ton of money, but BitClout, the ecosystem really ties in well into that. The obvious one, of course, is Sigil and the BitSwap team.
It's
Those
well, yeah.
guys are
Yeah.
like, I mean, we like Uniswap. If you look at any kind of facet of what's come out of like crypto generally in all the different spaces, DeFi and the rest of it, I was kind of like pretty into DeFi before this, and yeah, like it. BitSwap makes obvious total sense, and Adrian, who's doing
Yep.
Wrapped BitClout, I know he's now working with the
Yep.
BitSwap team,
Yep.
but Wrapped BitClout's got huge potential for sure. Um, Especially because
Yep.
I don't think BitClout necessarily need to build the off ramp themselves. I think it would be a really really smart move for them to outsource parts of that project, and kind of like that let the community do it for them, because it does take away from having this team that needs to build something. And I think there's so much pressure on that internal team right now to deliver an off ramp,
Yep.
that kind of letting the community
Makes
iterate
sense.
towards some version, I think works really well.
Makes complete sense. What was the first one you said? Was that Subcloud?
Yeah, Subcloud is by Max Metcalf, and it is a subscription
What?
newsletter.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
So,
Got it.
so yeah, it's
So,
subscription newsletters, but you basically can choose. You set a holding amount for your newsletter. So I could say, like, you can get the Jack Lee like weekly newsletter, and you need to hold $500 to get this newsletter, or I do a free version, and
oh,
yeah, I think the thing that's interesting about them is as far as I'm aware, they've got a working product. Like I subscribed to the first paid newsletter, that of someone that did the process.
so
So
is it kind of like they take care of all that? Like you just example sign up as a user, as like example yourself, and then it's like a platform where you can deploy the newsletter. I guess like it goes out kind of from their platform. Is that kind of am I saying that right?
yeah, I don't know. I don't run a newsletter through the platform, so I don't know
Okay.
how much they manage of the newsletter process. Whether you like write newsletters in platform and do that process, but I know that you get a dashboard. I imagine there's some sort of compose tool within the platform, but I'm not totally
Makes
sure how
sense.
that
And
happens.
probably some analytics and stuff like that on like
Yeah,
how the open rates are and all that kind of stuff. Cool, makes sense. Like an email marketing of newsletters. That's cool. I like that.
yeah.
Makes sense. I guess you can talk about companies specifically, but what about like ideas that you would like to see being built in the ecosystem? Like that's that'd be like it'd be cool to have this like next couple of things. It'd be cool to see this happening in the near future. What would you think about that?
Ooh, this is a good question. This is
You're a
a good
product.
question.
You're a product guy. We got to talk about this. Come on.
Yeah, no, for sure. This is a really tough question. I think the kind of like introduction of open nodes brings a lot of opportunity. I really like a lot of the ideas that aren't so focused on BitClout, like the current BitClout Twitter BitClout that exists right now necessarily, but the idea that
Yeah.
like you've got access to this open social graph and you can do all sorts of things with that social graph. I think there's a lot of exciting opportunity there. I don't know how far people have got along with that. But yeah, I can imagine, a lot of the social experiences that already exist outside of Twitter could in some form exist in a platform where, people are able to speculate on the value of those profiles or the trust or that trust that they've built in BitCloud can kind of like carry through to other platforms, whether it's, like YouTube or TikTok or these different kind of like platforms for creators.
That makes complete sense. I think even like you said, like you're right. I kind of agree with you too. Where BitCloud, like the tool BitCloud in its native, where it's at right now, like it's a great way to build hype, but it's not a it's not a long term way unless there's other stuff gets being built on top of it, like kind of like Clouded when they're doing the hashtags, and you can have different communities and which is kind of like a Reddit in a way, right? And get other people involved. Like, but
Yeah,
you're right to be for it being able to evolve different tools like the YouTube version, decentralized YouTube version, or I don't know who I was chatting with. I had somebody on the podcast and they said there was a tool called Dapper.xyz. Am I saying? I don't know if I'm saying that right or not. They said they were doing that. They were doing a YouTube, a decentralized YouTube, and he was very
I think
excited
that's a
about that.
separate project, right? Like it's not
Separate.
tied into the yeah, it's not tied into the BitCloud ecosystem, but
I'm not sure. I think he said it was tied into the big. I don't even know who I was talking to. I'm gonna look back at it and try to find it after. But I thought someone said that they were doing that and they just invested in that, or they said it was like really cool to see that.
yeah, it's super exciting stuff like that. I think as well, there's a lot of opportunity in two spaces that I don't see people going for right now.
Yeah,
One would be developer tools. Um, I mean, the platform is so early, and whenever you get a platform that has kind of like such kind of like a fast growth rate, and we're seeing like right now we're seeing an exponential increase in projects being built, right? Like it is
I can
literally
imagine.
crazy
Yeah,
from day to day. And I think it's really early on, but like a lot of people are immediately going to this idea of like, okay, if Twitter exists, then like maybe we can do this thing for it. Like everyone's going consumer, right? Like what can I build for the consumer? And
yeah,
I think there's a lot of things for the ecosystem developer wise that are going to be huge. Um, for sure, like making it easy to interact with that social graph that exists under the hood. And then verification, I think, is a huge play as well. I think generally this idea of like, okay, now you've got everyone on a platform, um, and you need some kind of like outside of the celebrities that are verified. For example, we're using BitClout or planning on using BitClout for verification of different makers in a platform, which is useful. Um, but I think there's a lot of opportunity there in verifying these profiles of people that are building because the big problem crypto has obviously is scam projects and scam everything. And
yeah.
to imagine a social graph like that working um, long term, like to imagine this kind of like big social network service that is built around like there is an underlying currency that people can transact around is like all well and good, but a lot of people are going to get scammed if there's not some kind of like
Yeah.
serious plays in verification of accounts and things like that. And GiftClout are actually
I
doing some interesting stuff in
agree.
this space.
Sorry, what's it called? Gift Cloud?
Yeah, I hadn't heard of it, but I actually spoke to there was like a Michael Simmons who's runs a project called BitCloud University. Um, it's basically going to be like really great documentation of like the BitCloud world, essentially, like how to open an account and all these different things. And he pulled together like a group, and there's a guy I cannot remember his name for the life of me, but he is building a project called Gift Cloud. You might have seen it on BitCloud. I did see them on BitCloud, and essentially they were giving away um, free clout to anybody was the original idea. And I think the
Okay.
play origin I was so confused by it, but I think the more I kind of thought about it, the smarter and smarter I thought it got. So originally, I think the idea was like it was an index fund essentially in BitClout, right? Because like let's say right now at the stage of the platform it's in at this moment, if I put $10 in every single person that joins the platform at this stage, that works out as probably a pretty good ETF against the long term success of BitClout. Like you can't invest in BitClout the company. I guess you could buy the BitClout coin, but the idea that creator coins are going to have like a blast off if you kind of like you're essentially creating this huge index where you invest in a ton of creators. Um, I think that was the original plan, but what they found was very quickly, they get a lot of scammers come through and just like taking lots and lots of kind of like free clout off them. I think they've given away over 50,000, he said, so far in free gift clout, BitClout, sorry. And yeah, they're now thinking about verification as like how they can verify people as they get onto the BitClout
Yeah.
platform and then push them through to projects. So they're thinking of like, maybe they get people to record a video, and in return for recording the video, they will invest in them. They will give them, their first $20 or $15 of BitClout. They will buy
Ooh,
their coin. Yeah.
I like that. I like that part with the video verification or something like that. Yeah, like because I mean, think about it. Like that same thing that I had in when I was got in the community, and that's why I wanted to do this podcast or the video podcast was again same thing, right? When I'm not same as you. I'm not. I mean, you've had way more experience in crypto community than I have had, right? Like I'm pretty new to crypto, but. One thing the challenge I see personally coming from a mainstream late adopter audience is I would say, I don't know who I'm like, who are the people like, when someone's building a company, I'm like, I want to be behind a company, but I want to be behind a human being. Right. And so I want to see who this person is. Right. And similarly, like even when we do these projects, like when I'm chatting with you, I was chatting with Sajil the other day, Andrew from Bits Today, and you chat with the guys, you're like, man, you see the real human beings. You're like, fuck, we want to build this stuff. And they're like excited and they're talking about these different ideas. And that kind of gives you that, you want to join on the mission. You want to, be a part of that movement.
Yeah.
But until you see that, it's hard. And so similarly, I do agree with you with this whole verification thing. Even because I've been monitoring my coin or my company coin, same thing where like it's straight up someone would buy and then someone would sell. These people are trying to just pump and dump, and it's okay for like as a creator because you're getting 10% every time. So you're like, okay, I'm building my coin holding, and in short term that's a problem. But in the long term, you need that verification because right now it's so early that even if you hold, if the platform becomes big, you will make money either way, right? But at long term, when it becomes more mature and new people come in, if they get scammed right away or they lose money, like they're gonna go and make YouTube videos about it, tell their friends about it, don't join. It really helps. Like it's scam and it hurts the growth of the platform.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree. I think long term that's a huge part of this. I also think the monetary system. Um, they mentioned it, I think, in the kind of like node release. Maybe it was in the bit before that, but how they found that price has been a pretty good algorithm for that they've used. Obviously, price. They've just arranged comments by the price of someone that comments. So if someone comments and the cost of their BitClout creator coin is $1,000, they show up at the top and
Yeah.
conversely down, right? And they found that to be a pretty good kind of like sorting algorithm for comments. And I think that concept, I'm really interested to see that play out in lots of different ways. Like, what is this kind of like idea of like price on a individual's like contribution on the value they provide? How does that tie into some form of like sorting algorithm across platforms, as opposed to these complex algorithms that take in a ton of data points, like a traditional comments algorithm, right? Like you could take in all these different things like engagement and like all these different factors, and how much does price kind of like work as a proxy for those?
I love that. Yeah, that makes total sense to me. I think that'd be really cool to watch. Um, Another thing that I see, I don't know if you see this or not, is maybe not as a big of a problem right now because we have this community of like everyone building, everyone happy, everyone like, hey, let's build this stuff. It's cool. It's a very positive community right now. But as more and more mainstream audience come, right, people have different interests, people have different views and beliefs. I think one more problem would be, in my opinion, would be like curation, like which is a good negative post, like negative versus positive. So example, like any kind of like any kind of like racism, for example, and all that kind of stuff. How would that get, moved away from the wall, like that reporting, or using machine learning to automatically find out, okay, this post is not right to be shown on the wall and all that stuff. Or like it can get deeper, like what about like child pornography, right? Like where does that balance there too? I think that, yeah.
No, this it's a really good point. I don't know what the plan is with like right now. Obviously, it's manually curated, and I believe it's manually created. I mean, the nodes have manual curation. So long term, right now, I don't know how that works for so many different kind of like followers. Again, it'll be interesting to see if price is a proxy for that, for like this global feed where, basically you have manual curation, but it's kind of like
Oh,
pushed
I
through
like
on
it.
price level. Um, that's one way, and then the other way that they're kind of talking about it. This is their kind of vision, not necessarily how I would see it, but the vision is like, let's say there was a BitClout version of BitClout that's like ESPN, and you go to this website to like chat about sports, and then there's a different, completely separate website, but they're all tied to the same social graph. So
Yeah.
let's say you're on sports and you decide that you like to use like the sports one, and you make a post on sports one talking about something. Like I could like fully see that from a completely separate platform, like a completely different website that happens to surface the same post. So I could be on general BitCloud, which is the one that we have right now, that is everything. Let's say it's more tech focused, but generally it's everything. I could still see and interact with you, despite the fact that you tend to live on a different platform that might shield you from different things that it shields me from. So people have this idea of like, I guess they can kind of like separate further and further, and people can be shielded from things that you don't necessarily want to see. Um, I do wonder. They mentioned like you could have this political one that's like red and blue, and I wonder how that plays out. I don't know if that's a net positive, if I'm completely honest. Like the idea that I think we're already seeing pretty big impacts, right, from people like algorithms being so good that they show people essentially what they want to see, but then you get like confirmation bias, and people are essentially like forced down a funnel where they essentially develop like very strong beliefs. Like the
Mm.
extremes are becoming far more the middle, because like
Yep.
essentially I watch one video, let's say, on like, I don't know, some guy playing football, and then YouTube only wants to show me football videos. You can imagine this for any sort of viewer opinion someone has. And if someone was to build a BitCloud that is like, let's say it's a political BitCloud, but it's
Yeah.
only surfaces or curates the left, then people are going to get into this like loop where they only essentially keep seeing the content they want to see.
Like anti-vaccine and like like that kind of stuff versus
Exactly.
pro. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's interesting, but I think that's kind of where I think that's interesting, and I think your verification point is so right. Like once you have the verification, and if you can tie in somehow, I don't know what the answer to that is, but it's fascinating because now even thinking about like bad content, as I'm thinking about this, the reason there's bad content because of the fake profiles or the the profile anonymous profiles and all that stuff, because there's nothing tied to it, right? Like you can create another BitCloud account, right, with a different phone number, and you can just make a fake profile, right? And I think, and you're right. If the feed becomes where like a account with certain kind of value, like if it's a newer account, it could become that it doesn't show up on global field until they have enough value, for example, right, and stuff like that. And I'm sure there's ways around it if that verification part gets fixed, because then it's like you don't want to. In fact, it kind of says you want to do good behavior, because if you do bad behavior, it's tied into how much your value is, and that could
Yeah.
really take a big hit, which is interesting too.
And also part of the parcel is like figuring out a way, if you stop the scams, then essentially like if you find a way to kind of like limit the use price as a proxy to kind of like limit scams without affecting genuine, positive actors that just don't happen to, maybe they're new, right? And they don't have any quote unquote value in the platform. If you can kind of use that, then it's a really interesting way to essentially long term, hopefully, control spam. Like if there is absolutely no value in being a negative actor in the system, um, of scamming, because like we said, like if comments and all these different things are valued based on price, I wonder how the impact of like being a negative actor diminishes. It's like essentially it becomes more and more pointless to
Oh,
try and scam your way to quick riches versus actually providing real value. And I think we'll see like providing real, like I posted a thing yesterday, and it got a good amount of replies from people, and it was around the concept of like, I keep getting spam from projects, like they keep messaging me in my inbox, basically saying like, "Hey, like we just launched this project, like check it out and do this and this and this," and like that's from my perspective, that's a negative action. Like it feels. I don't see that and think that's a positive project, and those guys are in there to create value. I see it as like those guys are trying to quickly acquire users through like growth hacks. And I think at this stage in the platform, they may be focusing on the wrong thing. Um, and I think they do a lot better by providing value, like focus on providing real value to people.
Yeah, I would even say if you want to do a DM, I think it's reach out to 5 people and custom message. Hey, I would love you to check out the product and give you feedback. Like simple as that, right? As compared to like what I know what you're talking about. I get a lot of DMs where like it's like a bot DM. It's like we're going out, our price is gonna go up. Invest in us, like that is straight up like a like you don't want that. You want some like reaching out to somebody and be like, hey, I love what you do. I would love if you can give me your 2 cents on how this do you think is the value in this product? How can I improve? How can I get feedback? And if that person genuinely finds value, he's actually gonna share it with his community. If he doesn't find value, he's gonna give you a couple of feedback points. You go and you change that and trade on that and you build something as a value. Simple as that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, Makes total sense. Cool. Any trends that are you seeing popping up?
When you say trends, what do you mean?
I'm saying any trends that you're seeing, like, because you get a lot of DMs, obviously, like, to have people like have them be featured, right? So any trends that you see where people are like certain kind of products are DMing you more and stuff like that.
Um, there's a lot of there's a so in terms of projects in general area, I think there is the number one space right now is definitely in like signals, in kind of like investment in tracking buys. Like the platform's generating a lot of wealth, so in a short amount of time. Or I mean, I guess there's no off ramp, so it's not real wealth. But like the idea is that values are going up very quickly, and that leads to a real push. Everyone wants to be in a kind of like industry that incentivizes the key user on the platform, and I think that's investors right now. So the most money is
Yeah.
in investment. So you see a lot of kind of like, we'll help you track your portfolio, we'll help you, I think you'll see more of things like we'll help you do your taxes, like from your portfolio, like all of these things all managed around kind of like either finding a great investment before it happens by tracking and bots and all these things, or once you have investments, tracking their progress and how they succeed and all these different things. Long term, I think the people that are going to win out the most are not the people that are kind of like essentially day trading right now. Like I think there's a lot of like find people that are providing value, and this is why I'm like I give a real push for the builder community. I guess the builder community we have is like I really believe a lot of those people are going to go significantly higher in value. I think BitSwap is like,
I
even though
agree.
it's a really expensive project relative to projects right now, like it's worth a lot of money. So I think it's severely undervalued. I think a lot of the big builder projects are undervalued. Um, and I think there's a lot of builders as well. Like there's people building projects that people don't look to that are severely undervalued. Like Matt, the guy who's building BitClout Hunt with us. I think we're going to do a lot of great stuff with BitClout Hunt that's going to bring a lot of attention. And he's trading, like under $600 or something, right? Like I think there's a lot of
Yeah.
people like Matt that are working on projects that I think are going to go significantly higher in price long term.
I also think that there's a lot of VC funding that's flowing into a lot of projects that people don't know about, and they don't even know. Like, there's big companies raising $1 million, $2 million, $3 million, and those companies, as soon as like they close their round and they start building big, like start have those funds to deploy and grow teams and speed up their process, like we will see some crazy amount of stuff that happening. So I was chatting with Rodney. And because he works for a VC fund, and I was just chatting with him behind the scenes of what's happening, how much money is flowing, and he's like, "There's a lot of people, investors behind the scenes right now, and so they're funding a lot of projects." So I think that will be an interesting one too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. I mean, hopefully for us, that would be exciting for us and the community. A lot of kind of like money flowing in. I think it's going to help build, better projects and get
Yeah.
people excited, which is great.
Exactly. Yeah, it makes complete sense. That's so cool. What's okay? So you told me about your 3 projects or whatever. What would you say? And this is again, there's no. First of all, I want to really say this. This is not financial advice. Please don't invest based on ours. We're just having fun with it. But what be 3 people you're really you think will really change in the next few months? You're very bullish on. Could be a Bitcoin
Oh,
too. Yeah.
okay. Price wise, who's going to change a lot in the
No,
next
no,
few months?
sorry, not price. I meant like bullish. Who we believe are gonna make a lot of impact in the community and like are gonna make
Oh,
something. Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Yeah, this is easier. So I think I need to think about this. I, I mean, I keep going back. I keep mentioning the guys, but I think it just seems so inevitable to me. The whole like BitSwap and all the kind of like people involved in that project. That seems inevitable just because everyone wants an off ramp, and Uniswap already exists, and you essentially have like SushiSwap, PancakeSwap, all these big projects popping up around the same concept, right? Which is like this pooled liquidity exchange. I think that's going to provide so much value to so many people. It's going to allow more money to flow in and out for sure. I'm super bullish on
Yeah.
that. I'm also really bullish on like some individual makers that I think are doing some really exciting stuff from kind of like our community. There's a guy called Paul Burke. He is in our community. He built a project called BitClout Plus, which is basically like an extension to BitClout that adds extra features to it. Right now,
Okay.
and I know he's building lots of different stuff, but I think him in general, like I'm bullish on him. I think the project BitCloud Plus is cool, but I'm more bullish on the things that he potentially is going to create. Like he seems to execute really well, build really fast, release often. And then I guess I'm bullish on writers. I don't think enough kind of like writers have come across. I know someone like Julian, for example. I don't think he's posted, or he has posted maybe a little bit, but not in the way that you would maybe use Twitter. I think you're going to see that whole kind of like creator community Twitter, like the great writers like a David Perel or like Julian, kind of like come to this platform. This is like gold for them ultimately. Like the stuff that you already see, kind of uh, like filtering through the global feed. Like internally at BitClout Hunt, we have like this really basic system that we kind of like plan some. If we're going to send out a tweet, we obviously tweet about projects, but we also like a common one that we just see again and again. And a tip for anyone that's like trying to get onto the global feed, our most successful projects are either like statements with the word you in it is always a big win, or an open question. Um, Open questions seem to filter the homepage at this point, and the global feed right now. And I think people asking things like, what do you think? Like everyone's so new to the platform, they're so curious. People are like, what do you think of X, Y, Z? Like, what do you think of the next best feature for BitClout will be? What do you think the next project that's gonna, take over is gonna be? Who do you think the best investment is? Like all these different things, they tend to trend pretty well. And I think the people who do that very well, I haven't seen those people migrate to the platform as quickly as I thought I would see them move over to the platform.
Makes sense.
Oh, I'm bullish on
Um,
Sean as well because he seems to be taking it very seriously.
Sorry,
Um,
who?
Sean VP. He's the guy.
Sean.
He was
Yeah, the
from.
hustle. Yeah, yeah. Oh, the
Yeah, yeah,
my first million. Yeah, I love those guys. They are so smart.
yeah. I'm bullish on him. He seems pretty sold in. He tweeted about how he's going to delete his account. I don't think he will, but I'm calling him out publicly. I don't think he will delete his Twitter, even if he gets the price. But we'll see. It'll be interesting. He seems pretty
You,
bullish on the platform.
and they're very good at media. Like Sean and like even Sam Parr, like they are very good at in like when it comes to media. Like their content is great. It's always fun to watch. You learn so much. Like even listening to their podcast, I love it. Like it's like because they were the first one who did the BitCloud, even the video they were talking about it when BitCloud had popped up. Like the first major video that on YouTube that popped up was with them. I think so.
Oh wow, okay. I didn't
Yeah.
know that, but yeah, it seems.
Yeah, I remember watching it because when I heard about it, like as in like learned about it, so 2 or 3 weeks ago maybe, I was like trying to learn more about it. And first, when I went to YouTube, the main video that like was basically Sam because he's more on the other end where he's like not he's like skeptical, whereas Sean is very like he's like very like pro. So they were like kind of talking about their both of the side of perspective, I guess. And it was very cool to
Yeah.
watch how he was looking at it and how he was looking at it. Awesome, man. I want to end this with you said we're speculating on what's the next BitClout feature. I want to know what's the next BitClout Hunt feature.
Oh, exciting. So when's this going out?
Probably next Monday. So not
Okay,
tomorrow,
cool.
not tomorrow, but a week after that.
Okay, cool. So yeah, so by the time, I guess by the time this is out, we'll have released kind of like a bunch of stuff. So we'll have user accounts, which is really exciting.
Cool.
So makers are now going to have control over their kind of like projects, and we're introducing announcements. So announcements basically mean that people have repeatedly asked us, like, unlike traditionally, where it's kind of like product hunt is like launch a project and that's it. It's kind of ephemeral. Like you launch, it goes, and then if you've got a V2, you launch again. But we're looking at kind of like these longer term project pages where people can, launch again and again through the same page, where people can continue to track and keep up to date with the project. So
Love that.
announcements will allow projects to post about the things that they release, and we'll have a homepage update as well to kind of like tie into those announcements, so people can see new announcements from all the exciting projects that are doing cool stuff.
I'm just brainstorming here, random stuff. By the way, as we were talking, I'm just thinking, is that something that could happen? That could you can see foreseeing happen in BitCloud, where it's like kind of like a goal thing, like Kickstarter kind of thing with a BitCloud Hunt. I mean, same thing, like where like obviously you're sending people to buy their coins, but can that be a thing where it becomes like a Kickstarter thing, like you're trying to raise this much, and it happens within the BitCloud Hunt page for the project?
It's I mean, it's definitely something we thought about. I think it is something that we're kind of like actively thinking about. We definitely have a lot of stuff coming pre-launch, and kind of like through that process.
I was gonna ask for a coin or two for my idea. Okay, now you guys have thought about it. Now I don't get that.
I mean, we haven't got creative grade airdrops. I do think that'll come very soon, so that should be
Yeah,
exciting.
that would be exciting. I completely agree with you on that. Awesome, man. Thank you so much for coming on the show. This was beautiful.
Thanks, it's been great.
Yeah, thanks so much.